Hello, welcome to the Land of Yak. My name is Laurel. Today I'm going to do a plan/record video for the week for my 2nd and 5th graders. I was going to show you my new binder that I got. I needed just a bigger binder with a bigger ring than the one that I had. I'm not going to show you my planning and recording and stuff like that for my high schooler just because it's kind of a different process and the video would be too long. But yeah, let's get into the binder. So I start out with my attendance sheets, and something that really helped me was these scheduling sheets. So at the beginning of the year, when I just wanted to make sure that in theory, my plan for what subjects to do each day and stuff would work. So this timetable really helped me. And I have 2 versions for each kid, a co-op week and a non-co-op week. So, because things get shuffled a little bit, right? This is my book log area. It's mostly a combination of the Robinson curriculum book list and the Easy Peasy readers for this section. And then I have 3 columns that I made for each of my kids. I can just record. What I do is I write it down, and then at the end of the year when I do my final, record keeping, I highlight everything that was done in that school year so I can tell, what grade each book was read in. And then I have these, more book reading log sheets, like blank ones, that I just kind of fill in as I go because I found myself using so many off-list books. And I'll link all these things for you in the description box in case they'd be helpful. The elementary school track. I'll try to link videos for when I was planning those for my high schooler and my younger kids too. But I just keep those at the beginning of each section for each kid. So I have 3 kids, I have 3 tabs. And then within each tab for each child, I've got dividers for all their subjects. And I'm using these sheets that I created. Again, I'll link them for you to help me plan and record. And then I have these to-do lists that I put together for each kid each week so that they can check off their stuff. I'm trying to train them up to be more efficient as they grow up and more responsible. But they do like to check off when they get done with the subject. And then they never have to ask me, what else do we have to do today, right? Because they can just, look at your to-do list. And I always put the dates on there so if we haven't already dated their pages, they know what the date is and they can fill it in themselves. All right, so I'm starting out with reading for my 5th grader. Now, I work through, because I do history and science together for my 2nd and 5th grader, I kind of work through which lessons we're going to do for the week with whichever one I start with. And so it takes a little bit longer, but then I get to just, plug that stuff into the 2nd child's plan for the week. This week, William was finishing up his Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And so I was just, going over which chapters he needed to read, and then his book report. We're going to finish off the last 3 days of the week with that. Looks like we're moving on to his, writing and composition. So I do consider spelling as a component of writing. So you can see I've split that assignment column into 2. And first I'm going to go back and I'm going to check which spelling he actually got done. And you can see I write it in there, the lesson, lesson 13, day 4, right? And that's how I keep track in the book in between my records to make sure we're on track. One thing I will say is I honestly should be doing this in pencil. You can see how many times I've changed the plan, or we didn't get to something I planned, I have to cross it out. But I really like writing with these pens. These are my favorite pens. I enjoy writing with them because I don't have to stop and sharpen them a million times. Because if I use a pencil, it has to be super, super sharp. I'll link these pens for you. I swear they changed my life. All right, and then if I don't have anything at all for the day, I just put an X in the box, right? And if there's something there, but it's nothing I'm going to record a grade for, then I just put a single diagonal slash. And if there's anything I do grade, then I'll leave the points in there. I do find it helpful to, label his spelling book pages for him and to put the dates in there for him. That just helps keep us straight, and it helps me tell if he misses something. It saves us time later on. All right, so spelling is done. And I just have to plug it into his to-do list. Okay, Okay, next up looks like math. So math, I actually don't plan ahead on because it's one of those subjects that I never know if we're going to need to repeat a lesson. Some lessons I break up into multiple days. If it's a test or something like that, we may do a retake. So I just purely record. Whatever we got done is what we got done, right? Sometimes and the dates you see it on the left where I put my dates, that is going to be the date that work is assigned, not necessarily the day that it was completed. All right, and then I've got it. So that's why I don't put on his to-do list what we're doing. I just put math because it's just going to be whatever it's going to be. And basically every day, if we just open up his book and decide based on the day, how much of it he's going to do. I give him like a stopping point, and then he's got to check his work with the key. All right, moving on to history. We're using The Good and the Beautiful, year 4. And I do it 4 days a week, but I alternate between a lesson day out of the textbook, and then the next day will be like a read aloud, a chapter from the read aloud book that goes with the unit. So we end up getting 4 days, but they're pretty sustainable. So you see I think I put math and history twice on his Monday. It's because I was down sick with a migraine the previous Friday, and we had missed a bunch of subjects. And so every once in a while, just to stay on track, I do double up on lessons. Well, history is not a big deal to double up on those lessons because, like I said, it would just be it's basically like doing a normal lesson day, like how they actually prescribe you to do it, which would be to do the lesson and the read aloud on the same day. So it's really not a big deal to do them together in one day. I just have different notebooking pages for the day that they were quote unquote assigned. And so it says IOHF, that's ink on his fingers. That's just the acronym for the title of the book we're reading. And plus NB, if you ever see me writing that, it means plus notebook. So because we are notebooking for these subjects, so we notebook for history, science, and obviously his math, he uses his everything else notebook. And then I'm just going to go back and check the titles. I do like to write in what was covered in that lesson in my planner / records. That's part of my requirements for my state. I'm supposed to have like a daily diary. So, I could just put lesson 23, but just in case they want to see what did lesson 23 cover? I'll just write in the name of the chapter. So I'm trying to train William. I'm having him work with me this time as I'm doing this planning to fill in his own dates and his own labels. And I do find it helpful to pre-plan the pages and make sure that all the dates for the week are in there. All the lessons are already pre-labeled so that it just helps them not accidentally get on the wrong page and stuff like that. Oftentimes I do this part myself. I write it in, but I'm trying to get him trained up to doing more on his own. And it did make my planning take a little bit longer, but hopefully it'll be worth it. All right, so now it looks like we're moving on to science. We're using Brian Builders, the second book in their elementary series, Science in the Ancient World. These ones I do plan ahead. This is easy enough. And I only do it typically twice a week. But say this week, we are going to do it 3 days because again, I'm making up for the day I missed last week. This is one of those courses that it's not like reading or math where I kind of go at our own pace. I am trying to just get through this material this year so we can move on to a new book next year. And I don't really want to be doing science over the summer. I'd like to drop science. So I'm trying to get us done. I'm not doing any of the bonus lessons in this book, again, so that it can just get us through the book this year. And we do enjoy the book, but so then you see me, Xing things off for the days I didn't assign anything. And this is what the book looks like. I'm just going back and looking at the title of the lesson, like what we'd be covering, like Archimedes and the lever, and then we're going to notebook on it, right? And got to add it onto the to-do list. I like to use a highlighter to make my check boxes. So then I was going back and I was just looking over everything. And of course, I thought it was too messy at the end. So I actually ended up rewriting this whole page, but not a necessary step. I like it to be more clear. And I'm just plugging in. I'm like, okay, what days can we do writing? This is our last subject. We're using Writing and Rhetoric, book 4, the Crea and Proverbs. And I try to do that 3 days a week. If there was a week that we didn't have co-op, I would do it 4 days a week. And that one, again, we just get done as much as we can get done. I find it hard to say exactly what you have to get through for a writing day, because some days just take longer to write. Sometimes it takes longer to write a paragraph than to do the multiple choice sections, We are moving on to my second grader. This is his reading section of his notebook. So I'll be going back to, he's in McGuffey's first revised reader, and I'm going through the companion notebook for it. I'll link this for you in the description box. I just write for every day the date for what pages we work on, and oftentimes it's multiple pages, but I just work a lesson. I do record what phonograms are being focused on or new or reviewed for those lessons, and then I just kind of make a note of what activities we did. Sometimes it's just we're reviewing the words and we're reading the passage. We're reviewing missed words, right? And this is just focusing on the reading component. Now on the writing side of it, again, I break this up into his notebook and his spelling. So you see I've split that column. And so now I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the reading, but I'm going to put, what activity it was that we were doing for writing, which for the most part is just going to be dictation or copy work. He's in second grade, so I'm mostly working on handwriting for writing. We're working a little bit of like punctuation, capitalization rules, stuff like that. And then I'm going to go through and you saw me do this with his brother. He's in McGuffey Spelling Level 2. It's the same series that his brother's working in, but it's just a different level. And I'm just going through and recording the dates that, I'm looking up the dates and then seeing which activity he did. And then, science. So this goes a lot faster since I've already planned this stuff with his brother. I kind of know, but I just go back, double check what's there and what's not from the previous week, and I can just check it off. I can see the last time he did science was on this date, right? And I can check that off in my planner, and I can start writing in what I've already planned with his older brother in his planner in his notebook. And then I don't have my second grader do the labeling and stuff in his own notebook. I'm going to do that for him. So I'm just copying what I had my older son write in his notebook, right, into the record pages for the younger one, and then writing it into his notebook and setting up his notebook pages for the week. If I had him do this, it would just take forever. All right, so this is all set up for science and history. Same thing, right? There's an example of their pages, just copying them in. And then he is ready for a new week.